Hey friends, what is up? It's been a second since I've been able to say what's up to you guys. I've been busy, man, but I wanted to talk about all the cool, fun things that have been going on in the world, especially lately. I know that many of you like some of my political ideas, so I wanted to talk because I started seeing, especially there's a lot of support for Bernie Sanders. And it's great to see it on Twitter and on Facebook and people actually discussing policy. And I wanted to cover some things that I think are important about Bernie Sanders and some things that we could help educate people on. Remember, it's not just the political ideas, it's educating people on what we're trying to change and how we're going to make those changes. And when we make those changes, what those changes will really mean. Because there's a lot of steps to this whole process. So, if you read the Slate article today, it was a really great Slate article, Reagan 2016. Thank you, Christina. I read this really great Slate article that it summarized a lot of what Bernie Sanders is talking about, and it's been some stuff that I think a lot of people have talked about. If you've ever watched The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, John Oliver in his show Last Week Tonight, he has a lot of these ideas. And I think that a lot of young people have these ideas as well, where we feel really disenfranchised and we want a candidate that represents us. And I want to rewind before we really get into the Bernie Sanders thing and try and understand what was happening in 2008 when President Barack Obama was elected, because I think many of us did want radical change when we elected Barack Obama. And I think that we did get a lot of that. And we got a lot of the change that we expected. He ran under the platform of change. And for what it's worth, Barack Obama did an incredible job of turning the country around, spurring the economy. He was given a really broken country. And our national debt's been decreased. We now have a national healthcare system that's actually meaningful. The Obamacare program, the Affordable Care Act, as it will. Gay marriage is legal. So under President Barack Obama, we've seen immense change, and I want to say that it's been overwhelmingly positive. But the more important thing to remember here is not just that Barack Obama gave us change, but that Barack Obama also was able to kind of act as a lightning rod, as a sounding rod for a lot of other ideas. When you look at the past 7 years and what will ultimately be 8 years of the Barack Obama presidency, we've seen a lot of change that is good for young people and will probably ultimately help grow our country and help grow our economy. Thank you. I like my eyebrows are doing well. I appreciate that. I work hard. I get them waxed. Yeah, they're on fleek as they will. But I think moving forward, we need to take even more radical changes to really try and take back a government that's kind of run amok. The Citizens United thing that allows for super PACs, that has really given a lot of elections into corporate hands. I think that needs to be reversed. I think that was an error that the Supreme Court made. And I think that it's something that we as citizens need to understand is hurting our country, that when you allow organizations and corporations to have such a heavy hand in politics, it gives too much power to people with money. Because I'm a person who's a small business owner. Yeah, Bernie Sanders, definitely. We're going to get to that. So I'm a small business owner, and over the past, since 2006, I've started and run 4 successful businesses and made money, and I'm really proud of the work that I've done. But I feel like it could have done a lot better had I had better legislative tools that would have allowed me to hire more employees to help me run my companies. And I think the one thing we're going to have to hear, and we're probably going to hear it a lot, is that the people who are afraid of Bernie Sanders, because I do believe that many corporations and many people, many lobbyists, especially lobbyists fear Bernie Sanders. The election's in November of next year, so we've got about a year and a half to go-ish. I think it's like 17 months until the election. So, American election cycles run a long time. So we're going to be talking a lot about Bernie Sanders and his ideas, but I want to stress that the ideas that he's pushing, many of them aren't new and they're not untried. So one of the biggest things that Bernie Sanders is campaigning upon, and it's not being discussed as often as I think it should, is how to change the tax rate for the wealthiest 1% of Americans. And I think that it's something we need to understand as a society, that this has actually been done before. So President Eisenhower in the 1950s, if you're not familiar with President Eisenhower, he was a World War II general who was crazy popular. His campaign slogan was "I like Ike." Everyone loved President Eisenhower. Under President Eisenhower, the wealthiest 1% of Americans were taxed at a peak of 87% of their total income. So when you made money and you were very, very rich under Eisenhower, you had about 90% of your money taken away from you. Now, what does that really mean? Okay, so when you're in the top tier, the crazy wealthy, when you, as a person, right, can't spend that amount of money, it's very hard for you to manage that amount of assets. So let's say I make $100 million a year, okay? Under Bernie, that person who made $100 million a year would have $90 million taken away. They would get $10 million. Now, this is what I think the wealthy people are afraid of. They don't believe in our government, which is fine, but I think we also need to see other changes made in our government, because things have shifted. In the 1950s, when Eisenhower was president, about 9% of high school graduates went on to do undergrad. So 1 in 10 people. Now that number's hovering around 35 to 40%, depending on what state you're in. So we have more people getting college educated. The other thing that I do like that Bernie Sanders wants to do is make public colleges a free institution. Because I have many peers that went to school and got a degree, but now can't get a job. And I feel like what Bernie Sanders had to say about how student loans are granted, how they're given, and how much they cost is kind of an oppressive culture where you're almost indebted to the student loans themselves before you can actually begin working for yourself. And it's I wonder who's calling me here. Let's find out. I'm going to take this call. We'll see if this is important. Oh, it's Danny. Hey, Danny, you're on my Periscope. You're on my Periscope. Yeah, you're not on speakerphone, but anyway, Christina says hi. Yeah. 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 I'll call you back in a second. Bye. Sorry. Yeah, that was Danny Deal. She's my buddy. She's one of the nap girls. Christina's a nap girl here at G2. So anyway, to continue, I think that we need to change a lot. Now, the second thing is about corporate interest, and this is hyper important, especially as we move forward. I'm a person who really believes in nuclear energy and really advancing U.S. nuclear policy. Right now, you hear a lot of things about clean natural gas and clean coal and all these things, and I would just like to point out that fossil fuels have to end. And I think as a world leader, Bernie Sanders, if he is able to remove money from American politics, we will actually be able to see clean coal. Yeah, I want to anybody, if you've ever seen just get a handful of coal, just grab it, okay? And as soon as you get your hands off that coal, your hands will be coated in soot. Coal is not clean, and it can't be clean because you're burning a hydrocarbon. If you understand anything about energy, anytime you burn a hydrocarbon, whether it's diesel, gasoline, coal, natural gas, whatever it is, burning hydrocarbons is going to create CO2. There's no way around it at all, period, not one bit. You can reduce the sulfur compounds. You can reduce a lot of the other things that are bad for the atmosphere that create acid rain. This is true. You can make coal cleaner if you choose to. But the overwhelming fact of the matter is still that coal and all these fossil fuels are going to put CO2 in the atmosphere, and they're a problem. I'm a proponent of nuclear energy because I believe in science. I'm always, been scientifically minded. I've read a lot about nuclear physics. Kirk Sorensen, who's one of the foremost nuclear physicists in the world, is a close friend of mine. I've been talking to him a lot on Skype. Nuclear energy is going to pave the way for a lot of things that right now are underfunded. Because currently in the United States, because of the way our political structure is set up, politicians get elected, and then they give subsidies to these fossil fuel companies to make them more affordable. And Bernie Sanders is against subsidies for fossil fuel companies. And I know that initially that's going to mean we'll need to make a lot of changes. And I think that our generation, the young generation, and we need to understand that it's within us to make these changes, to make these hard decisions, okay? Yeah, we can talk about the money we put into our military. Yeah, Bernie Sanders is one of the other people who's against, the military industrial complex. We spend about $750 billion a year on our military, so I'll totally get to that in a minute, because it's an issue. I definitely take issue with how much money we spend on the military. But to talk about energy policy for a minute, and what I like about what we're doing is that we have our national transportation infrastructure as it stands is predicated upon fossil fuels. The number one job in the United States, the thing that employs more people than anything else, is over-the-road truck drivers, people who transport goods, the logistics of getting things from point A to point B, and that's a lot of diesel fuel. But I believe with a next-generation electricity grid, and they're called molten salt reactors, MSRs. These are small modular nuclear reactors. They're not like the big ones that you're used to seeing with the big silos and all that. The new nuclear energy we have coming online that we could invest money into that needs billions of dollars in funding, and I would stress this, nuclear energy is not free. Nuclear physics is expensive research. It costs a lot of money to get these things online, but as we develop the nuclear technology and expand it out, there's this thing called economies of scale. When you develop something and you create more and more and more and more of it, when you mass produce it, they get less expensive to produce. So what I would stress is that when we have the ability to put someone in office who is radical, who's willing to make those radical changes, I think that we should take that opportunity and seize it, and then also from there work outward to try and get congressional and senatorial reform, because it doesn't end with Bernie Sanders. I think that what we can do by electing Bernie Sanders is what we call a mandate. When you elect Bernie Sanders, what that really means is his policies, his ideas are the things that our congressmen, our senators need to start working towards. And we saw that under Obama with the Affordable Care Act, but I think we'll continue seeing that. If we can manage to get Bernie Sanders elected, we will be able to get a lot of his ideas and policies implemented. Now, when people call him a socialist and they say socialist ideas, that's not bad necessarily. I would say that there are some socialism principles that are beneficial to society. Not all, but some, because he's an independent, and I encourage you all. I used to identify myself as a Republican, and then sometimes I identified myself as a Democrat. But ultimately, I'm moving more independent myself and trying to make ideas and make judgments based upon a policy by policy basis rather than going with either party. And I think that we're having a lot more young people see that now as well, where in Europe, if the Democratic vote would be split between, it'd be it might be an ugly situation between Bernie Sanders and Hillary, because I do believe that's going to be the split. It's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be, what's Democratic? So what we're going to run into, and what I think is going to happen here, is that Bernie Sanders is going to be shouted down, because he's got some socialist ideas, and I'm not opposed to some of his ideas that have, been tagged as socialists. Everywhere else in the developed world, every single other OECD nation on the planet has a universal single-payer healthcare system. Canada, Australia, England, France, Germany, all those places, Sweden, Finland, Norway, everywhere. They all have a universal single-payer healthcare system, and Bernie Sanders wants to enact that in the United States, which I wholeheartedly support. I think there are a lot of people who are going to be ignorant, and they're going to choose to be ignorant and not believe the facts. But that's fine. We as a country right now are at such an amazing tipping point where we can do something fantastic and make the United States a firebrand, where we are able to be the center of world industry and world leadership again, and have great ideas, because moderates might vote Republican, but I think, and this is what's important, and I okay, we all have to vote, okay? I know that this isn't as easy as posting on Facebook, and I know that getting on Twitter and all that's fun, but there are more of us than there are of anyone else. The millennials, as we're called, we are the most progressive, liberal-minded generation I think the United States has ever seen, because honestly, we have been fucked since the moment we were born, okay? I was born in 1986, which is a year before that big stock market crash happened in 1987. And then I watched the tech bubble boom and burst in the late 90s. And then I watched the entire housing market collapse in 2008 and 2009. So my generation has been forced to pay for other people's mistakes. And we're now seeing the problems that all those mistakes made, where our student loan system is out of control. We have, I don't like the way colleges are currently put together and produced. Yeah, no universal healthcare system is basically saying poor people don't deserve treatment. Yeah, no, I believe that I do believe that healthcare is a fundamental right. Okay, I don't think that health should be a racket. It's unfortunate that health is commoditized in the United States. Yeah, the education bubble's next because we have too much student loan debt to really even be meaningful. But yeah, there will be a student loan bubble burst because okay, this is another thing that's hard to say. The way we run our education system is designed to benefit colleges. When we saw a rise of for-profit colleges, okay, places like the University of Phoenix that I consider evil, okay? The University of Phoenix graduates 10% of their students, yet most people, 90% of their students, get $40,000 or more in student loan debt, and they don't even get a real education. When you allow private companies to buy schools and then run for-profit education mills, education should not be a profitable industry. Education should be a zero-sum, non-profit industry as it was supposed to be established to be. Education is not wildly, I don't know how people can say that education is a for-profit industry. If you go into education, you know what you're signing up for. I know my parents were educators at one point. They're not now, but they were. And when you, this is what's great about, Bernie. I believe that if we can get Bernie in office and we can get some of his ideas moving forward, when I, eventually shift out of the music business and shift out of private and do what I intend to do later in life, which is, go into politics, I believe that I will have more of a foothold where me and my peers who will be running for office, who will have more progressive liberal ideas, we will have the ability to make those changes later down the road, 10 years from now. Because you have to look forward. Bernie Sanders is more of a symbol that we want to change. He isn't the thing that's going to create everything. But we actually have a reason to vote. And I would encourage people to vote, not because they believe in all of Bernie Sanders' policies, but just to show that we have power and we can actually do something. Because Bernie Sanders doesn't stand for the status quo. And that's why I think it's so hilarious when I see people attack him. Because the people who are attacking Bernie Sanders for being radical and having socialist ideas are people with something to lose. They're people who are afraid of what he's doing. The legal voting age is 18 in the United States. In fact, you know what you need to do before you type anything else into your little thing? You need to use Google. Because that's one of those questions that you don't even have to ask here. You can just be like, oh, I wonder what the legal voting age is. Okay, anyway. So I think that all these things can change, and I really do look forward to the future. I think even with everything we have in front of us and all the problems, I look around at my peers and I don't feel hopeless, and I don't feel like, things are beyond help, because I know we're all smart. I've seen it, when gay marriage was legalized recently, and I saw everyone start rallying around, what that meant and what a great landmark decision that was. We're able to change things, and we do want that change. And it was one of those things where most of my peers, I would say the vast majority, who give a shit and care about human beings and aren't fucking irresponsible fuckheads who just hate all people who are different than them, they all supported gay marriage. And I've always supported gay marriage. I've always supported equality among all people, whether they're gay, black, Mexican, whatever the fuck it is. And I don't think that that's a crazy idea. And the way that gay marriage was positioned by the opposition was that it was a crazy idea. And it's not. These ideas aren't crazy. It's not crazy to tax the wealthy. It's not crazy to make education affordable. It's not crazy to take care of people. When people say that it's crazy to take care of sick people, they're being what's commonly known, scientifically speaking, as an asshole. And I don't want assholes running my country. Like, I get called an asshole on a regular basis, but I'm an asshole that wants sick people to be cared for. I understand that, when and I hate to point it out, but, when Republican lawmakers run stupid fuckery, like trying to remove free and reduced lunch programs from schools because they want to end the, they don't like, they call them takers, the poor who are just robbing our economy. All right? Whenever somebody's pointing at poor people and saying they're the problem, usually they're rich people who are creating the problem. And they call that deflecting. All right? When you're creating a problem, it's a lot easier to blame someone else and create a distraction. Well, who's creating all the problems? It's the poors that take, and they're the welfare state, and they're on food stamps, and they want to stigmatize poor people. Well, I got some news for you. When I was a kid, my family didn't have a lot of money. I was poor. My mother was a single mother for the first 3 years of my life. We were on food stamps. We were on welfare. And what happened? Well, when you use those programs and you're able to get a leg up, because I was able to have food and diapers and things like that, my mom was able to go to college and get an education and make her life better for me and her. She got a master's degree, and I'm not on food stamps anymore. We were on food stamps when I was 3 years old, and now I'm a guy that owns 2 businesses. I have 4 employees. When you actually pay in and you help people lift themselves up, it works. You know, the Republican strategy of lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps, for a minute there, think about that for a second. The entire Republican economic idea of lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps is physically fucking impossible. You can't even lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. They just put this idea in your head that sounds interesting, and when you think about it, you're like, wait a fucking second. The laws of gravity don't work for me there. So I do believe in Bernie Sanders, and then the secondary function here is Bernie Sanders is on the opposite end of the spectrum from people like Donald Trump, who has recently, thank fucking God, been skewered to no end. Donald Trump, he got on, I think it was a radio show or maybe it was a TV program, and he had declared that, illegals were ruining the country and they were rapists and they were committing crimes. And I take great offense to this. One, because I'm fluent in Spanish. Mi familia es de Oaxaca, Mexico. I know my family in Mexico. And to me, it is alarming that people would vilify people who just want to come here and work hard. Because, you know what? There are plenty of white criminals that were born here that do stupid shit and rape and murder and fuck up. So you can't blindly paint and say that immigrants are scary. Because that's the one thing I think is so nuts when you look at people like Donald Trump and other people who are like, we need to protect our borders. I think we need to protect our borders too, but maybe on the inside. The people who are already fucking creating crime and victimizing us and doing things like that, maybe we should police ourselves a little better first before we go and point the finger at people who really honestly are just coming here because they want to send money home to their families. Here's the second thing that I want you to understand about immigration, okay? When people come here, typically, and we're talking about immigration, we're usually talking about Central America, Mexico, South America even. They're coming here, but they don't have the same skills you have, okay? They really just want to do backbreaking labor because that's what they can do. A lot of times they don't speak English well enough. Many times they don't write and read in English. They're coming here in mass groups. And they want to work, and their whole goal here, and this is another thing, if we let them be legal, okay, this is what's so important, and I want you guys to focus on this because it's crazy important, okay? When they come here, many of these illegal immigrants, or immigrants as I'm going to call them, many of these people who come here don't intend to stay in the United States forever, okay? So when you make someone a legal resident, here's what you can do. You can tax them. Now, when these people come here to work, I want you to, if you can, look at your pay stub next time, and it says you're paying into Social Security, and you're paying into disability, and you're paying into a lot of these programs, right? Well, when these immigrants come here and they leave, they'll never ever collect Social Security. So they're paying into a system that actually helps Americans. So they're paying into a system that they never intend to use. They're not going to be here till they're 60 years old. They're just going to work, and then send money home, okay? And here's the second thing, which I think is ridiculous, okay? People like Donald Trump and people who are anti-immigration, they will parrot to no end that they come here and they take money out of the American economy, okay, and send it home. That's their line. That's why they think it's so bad. So here's the deal. The real deal is it's another deflection. What's really happening is corporations in the United States are given subsidies, currently tax subsidies and tax breaks, to send their goods and services overseas. Yeah, Nike might be headquartered in Eugene, Oregon. That's right. But despite the fact that their headquarters is in Eugene, Oregon, over 95% of Nike products are manufactured overseas. So when we talk about an American company, yeah, I guess their headquarters is here, but the tax breaks and the tax culture exists such that Nike's actually sending all their money overseas. Are we vilifying Nike? I don't see politicians out there saying Nike's horrible because their shoes are manufactured in Malaysia. No, we don't do that because corporations don't get necessarily vilified in the United States in the same way a person would. So it's a lot easier for us to point it and say, look at that brown person. He's sending his money home to his family. But it's hard to go and look at somebody like Nike or Adidas or Levi's Jeans or whoever it is and vilify that company for sending manufacturing overseas. Yeah, Yeah, Bernie wants to put stricter laws on companies that intend to outsource all their labor, because it does take jobs away from the American economy. I don't think there is a lack of work in the United States. I think there's a lack of work that's available to the educated populace because we have incentivized corporations to make sure we don't have jobs here. When you blindly go towards profitability and making sure that people who are already rich get even richer, this is what you end up with. And I think that Bernie's 100% right on. We don't need a class of hyper-wealthy individuals. We don't need it. This is a thing that's brand new. We don't have to live this way. In the 1950s, this shit just didn't exist. When you actually look at the 1950s, the United States GDP per capita, per person, like when you adjusted for inflation, was much greater than it was now. And they didn't have computers. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have any of that. We just had great manufacturing, great light industrial, great medium industrial. I believe that we can bring these jobs back to the United States if we give people the right education, right? Our new industries right now are technology. If we keep jobs in the technology sector, and I'm not trying to vilify my peers here, but I think we kind of need to look at ourselves seriously too, because we're part of the problem. I'm allowed to point at other people, okay? This is fair, and I will point at other people, and I'll point at the politicians, but the secondary thing is here, guys, and you got to get through your head. We gotta work harder than we do, okay? There are a lot of us that went to college and you got degrees in art and photography and communications and marketing and all these liberal arts degrees. You're an English major. Congratulations. Here's the problem. The world isn't advancing in how many books you can write. The world's advancing in high technology, making digital applications, programming computers, drone helicopters, things like that. We need more scientists. We need more engineers. You know, if we're going to expand into the nuclear energy economy and we're going to make a world of nuclear power that's, low carbon, all right, well, we need nuclear physicists, all right? So I know you don't like doing math. I hear this a lot where people say, I just didn't get math. Math wasn't my thing. Math isn't fucking anybody's thing. Math and science and engineering, they're hard. They're a lot harder than snapping pictures and being some artsy Etsy fuck. Okay? I know everybody wants to get an Etsy account. It's fine to have a hobby, but not everybody can get out there and be a DJ and an artist or a musician or whatever it is. It's cool to like science, right? I personally, the way I went in that world, in that sector, was I learned to code. I wanted to learn about computers. I wanted to learn how to program websites. I wanted to know how to make iPhone apps. And now, because of all that, I have a lot of work. I have more work than I know what to fucking do with. And I think that you guys need to understand that too. We can point at all the problems, right? And say all the politicians are our problems. But honestly, when you look at how many liberal arts majors we graduate out of U.S. colleges, it's the student loans that are a problem, one. But you're getting degrees in the wrong shit. We don't have a system that'll tell you what kind of degree you should get. Well, you should get a degree in something that's probably challenging and hard. And if you're not going to go and get that kind of degree, maybe you shouldn't go to college. Maybe you should go and serve. I have two buddies of mine, right? I'm not going to name them, but they live here in town. Each one of them is about $45,000 in debt for their student loans, and they're servers. One's a bartender, one waits tables. He didn't need to go to college, but they can't find jobs in marketing and communication because there's only so many jobs you can have in marketing. It's cool to be in marketing, and there needs to be those kind of people, but marketing people have to sell a product. There's got to be something behind it. And if we don't have the engineers and the people making the stuff to sell, all those marketing majors are going to have servers. Not everybody can go work at a hotel. Not everybody can go be a hiking guide. We need real people who are going to get out and try and be cool. It's cool to study nuclear physics. You know why? Because if you go get a job in nuclear physics in the next 10 years, you're going to make more money than Oprah. You're going to get Oprah rich. And that's the right way to have it. Yeah. Oh, what's up? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Bonus, average income. I'm not going to tell you guys what I make, but I do very well for myself working in computer science. Yeah, starving artist is a real thing, and I don't think you all have to be starving artists. I know plenty of people, I'm also not going to name who he is. One of my favorite, actually, no, I'll go ahead and say, his name's Greg Gillis, right? Greg Gillis was a biochemist, but he also went by the name Girl Talk. Everybody's ever heard of Girl Talk, the mashup DJ? Girl Talk is a biochemist. That guy's a fucking genius. And then he went and did the DJ thing. And he was able to be as successful as he was as a DJ doing mashups because he had so much money from his private job. When people ask, how did Girl Talk blow up so fast? That guy had paper. That guy was doing one of the, you just this all day. Like, what do? I make mixtapes and then I promote the shit out of them with money. You want to be successful as an artist, you got to promote yourself. You know what promotion costs? Cash, son. So I look at it like it doesn't mean that you can't be an artist and be a scientist. They're not mutually exclusive. You know the little meme where it's like, why not be both? Or why not do both? Like, why not do both? You can do both. Just because you want to go do science during your day job doesn't mean at night you can't be in a band. Doesn't mean at night you can't enjoy painting. It just means that you can't do that all the fucking time. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you that it's all the politicians' fault or it's all your fault. I'm saying we kind of did this shit together. And if we really want to improve, we're going to have to make ourselves improve. That might mean a couple of you guys might have to go back to school and get an education in engineering. That's fine. Go be an engineer. Go learn how to, seriously, in all seriousness, go learn how to, develop nuclear reactors and build nuclear reactors. You will print money. And then you'll go home and you'll be able to paint or do whatever the fuck it is, and get yourself an Etsy account and do cutesy shit. I don't do that cutesy shit. I'm not good at that kind of stuff. But you can. You can do both. Yeah. Is a poli-sci degree good? I guess. I mean, it's important that we have people out there that understand political science and political theory. And, I'm self-educated on political science and all that, in history. And I'm interested in those kind of things. I really am. I try and inform myself. But just because I'm interested doesn't mean it's a good degree. I think if you're going to get a degree in political science, you might as well go all the way and get a PhD in it and teach in it. Because there aren't a lot of jobs in political science. You can join a lobbying firm if you have a political science degree. You can get involved in politics. You can go work in Washington. But the bottom line is it's not really there aren't a lot of job creating opportunities in political science. It's very hard for you to go start a lobbying firm without, years and years and years of experience. Whereas if you get an engineering degree and you have an idea and you engineer a product, you can go get money from venture capitalists and start your own company. And I think it's more important to have people who can make stuff. There was this moment in season 2 of The Wire, where they had this kind of heart-to-heart thing, and they were standing on the docks of Baltimore, and to summarize, the sentiment of that thing, he was saying, you know what used to be so great about America is we used to build stuff, we used to make things, all right. And I think that one of the things that happened here in the United States is we stopped making things, we stopped being a producer and became consumers. Rather than being able to export things overseas and grow our economy, we ended up with trade deficits to China. Like when you're in a trade deficit with a country, that inherently means that you're spending more than you're saving. And that's not a good place for an economy to be in. Especially now that China's stock market may or may not be crashing down upon itself. Well, when you have a trade partner that you have an inequality with, and then their stock market tanks, what happens to your economy? Well, we're inexplicably tied to it. We're in a compromised position. That's why American economists right now are looking at China's economy and saying, oh shit, this is a bad thing. Because it is a bad thing. We would rather be producing stuff. Why? Because when you're selling things, what happens? You're making money. But when you're buying more than you sell, what happens? You lose money. And it's not that hard to figure out. That to me is not a radical idea. I do believe that here in the United States, if we had the ability to be the people making the high-speed trains that every other country bought, we could have jobs in that. If we were the country that was making the molten salt reactors, the small modular nuclear reactors, and sending them to Central America, sending them to Southeast Asia, we would become the hub and the fulcrum of all of that money. All that money that people would be buying. Let's say, Malaysia needs a molten salt reactor for a city they're building. All right, well, if we make those, and we're the country that's making those reactors, well, then we're getting money from other countries. That's the global economy working for us. And as long as we're in the hands of politicians who have a vested interest in making sure that the populace doesn't have good jobs, that the middle class is forever shrinking, that they're getting wealthier and wealthier, we're going to end up with huge problems that we continue to see today. So if you decide to vote for Bernie Sanders, which you should, you will create the change, or start to create the change that we will see later down the road. Because the policies that he enacts will then allow other politicians who follow him to continue those policies and make these, because these changes we need to make, they're not immediate, they're not overnight. We're not even talking about change that takes 4 to 8 years. We're talking about changes that might take 20 to 30 years. We've not been doing a good job for 20 to 30 years of managing our economy. All right. Right now, you and I, okay, if you're a millennial, you're probably a young person watching this. You're paying into a system on Social Security that you will never, ever use. Social Security will likely go bankrupt before you get there. We don't have retirement. All right. We're paying for our parents' retirement and we're not going to get it. It's just, it's like a parent handing their kid debt. And I think it's immoral. I think it's wrong. And we can either pass that debt along to our children, or we can do the right thing, make all the changes we need to make, put on our fucking big boy pants, and do the fucking work that it takes to turn an economy around after fuckheads have wrecked it for 30 years. Because it didn't work. Reagan comes into office, introduces Reaganomics, the entire country goes to shit. Why? Because you can't have a country without the middle class. The middle class is where your workers are. The Reaganomics failed. You know what they used to call it, by the way? They call it trickle-down economics. You know what the other thing was? It was, what was it called? Horse and sparrow economics. What's my advice to high school students and what they should be getting now? All right, if you're in high school right now, I would recommend that you learn as much as you can about math and computer science and engineering, because those are your growth sector jobs. That's where you're gonna, that's where you're gonna get it. Like right now, I have more work than I can do because I'm in tech. Like I literally, and this happens to me on a daily basis, I have to give stuff to my friends to do. I don't have enough hours in my day, especially because I'm periscoping, but I don't have enough hours in my day to fill everything up. Like this week, and I'm not going to, I'm not trying to brag, but this week I made I think $7 or $8 grand in 1 week, just freelancing, just doing my own shit. So if I have a good year this year and I can keep up that pace, what does that work out to be? 728. I'll make $250,000 this year if I pull it right, just doing tech shit. That's not even including music stuff. And I do that because and by the way, I pay a fuck ton of taxes, and I wouldn't mind paying more. That's another thing I don't impress. I'm not opposed to giving my money away if I make a lot of money, because I'm comfortable as is, and I would still be comfortable and still be doing the same exact shit if I made a third of the money I made. So most of the backbone of my business is doing small business development for companies that need web presence built. We're kind of a unique time in the American economy, especially in the worldwide economy, where a lot of business is moving online. E-commerce is kind of taking over, and things like insurance companies and lawyers and doctors and stuff are starting to use technology to their benefit. Like last week, I made a website for a doctor's office where patients could go in and click and open a calendar and schedule, how do I condition my hair? Yes, let's talk about the important stuff. Do I condition my hair? Yeah, we're in the middle of talking about the economy. Let's talk about my hair. It's fucking luxurious, isn't it? My hair is fucking luxurious. It's so soft. Oh my God. Anyway, I made a website for a doctor's office, and then the week before that, I made a website for an OSHA compliance lawyer, OSHA and HIPAA compliance. So I make a lot of sites, and if I charge $2 grand, $2,500 a site, I'm doing pretty well for myself. And it's not a ton of money per site. I guess it kind of is, but it takes a lot of work, and it's highly specialized, and I have to code it all. And a lot of people, have specific things they need done, and I have to create those little plugins and extensions and whatnot. And sometimes there'll be something that works out of the box, and sometimes it won't. And you have to troubleshoot it, and you have to know how to build OpenStack servers. And then I learned about Ubuntu Juju and how to do open deployment through YAML files and things that I never thought I'd even be doing 3 years ago. So it's a constant learning process too. This is the other thing I would stress to you. You never stop learning. Especially when you're in tech. Things change so fast. They develop so quickly. You close your eyes for a week and you wake up and then you're lost again. And I like things like that. I'm self-taught. I have a GED. I didn't college. College doesn't help you. Do you need to know math for this stuff? Absolutely. A lot of what I do, college isn't an option for you. We'll get to that in a minute and why it isn't an option, because I believe it's an option for everyone. Is math involved in computer science and coding? Absolutely. There's a lot of geometry involved. When you think about any time you see a picture displayed on a web page, right? Well, a lot of there's these things called responsive sites. Have you ever seen a responsive site where you can slide the window and the picture automatically gets bigger or smaller? So what's really happening there is you're dealing with ratios. So ratios are you're just plugging in and you're saying, hey, this picture needs to be this size, and this size, and you need to be able to formulate that ratio so the corners, if you think about it from here to there, they all match up. so the picture will size itself correctly, because it's not about height and width, because then the picture's doing all this. You want to size the corner. And so what is that? That's trigonometry. Remember that? A squared, B squared, C squared? All that, right? Sine, cosine, tangent, all that. That's all JavaScript. So if you're learning that in school, you're actually learning something like trigonometry is something that I use regularly with coding. I never thought I would use trigonometry when I was learning it in school. I was like, what is this shit? But now in coding, I use trig. You don't think about it as trig, but that's what it is. Yay, ninth grade math. Yeah. So like all that stuff, that's all usable. That's all part of computer science. That's all the backbone of what you need to learn. And I would say that, yeah, it's definitely important. And I would encourage all of you to go and do those important things and make those hard decisions. Like, man, I'm going to do something that's harder than writing a marketing paper. Because honestly, I can write all day long. I could have shit out a fucking liberal arts degree if I wanted to. Really could have. I don't think it's hard to get a liberal arts degree. I'm sorry if you have a liberal arts degree and you disagree, but I know some really fucking dumb people that got through college with a 4-year degree, and they're not particularly innovative or insightful people. I want to learn so bad. I'm just trying to teach myself starting like Tumblr HTML. Here's what you need to do, okay? Code Academy. Google it. Code Academy. You can do all those classes. Just start taking Code Academy classes. You will learn a ton. Just put some mellow music, get some Brian Eno on in those headphones. Just mellow out. Some Sigur Rós, something that's not going to distract you. Get some Eno going on. Music for airports, Code Academy is 100% free, so just go do it. Yep. Code Academy is a free thing, so if you're not doing it, do it. But anyway, I'm gonna jump off because I've got like an hour and a half to deliver this fucking site, and I've probably got like an hour and a half of work to do. So yeah, I'm gonna go make my money because I get paid by the job over here. But I encourage all of you to continue making good decisions. Christina, good having you here again, and I gotta call Danny back. So I will